I get those goosebumps. I get those goosebumps every time you come around. Ease on mine, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments. I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need that high, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. You switched over last minute. I wasn't expecting that. Welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC, back to back for a long time now. We've not done a back-to-back show, but we are back with another Wednesday transfer special. So welcome all. I'm glad you're joining us for tonight's show, and it's bound to be a cracker. But look, before we get our guest on and get into all things Newcastle United, boys, how we been in the last 24 hours? We good?
No, it's changed, really, has it? It's. Do you know what? It's my favourite word is fusion. It's literally been plodding for the last 24 hours. There's been no hardly any new stories. We've really had to pick the boards out with a few little things to bring some little nuggets for the viewers tonight. So, but yeah, it's been all right.
Definitely, Mr. Hall. How are you, fella?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah. Our sums isn't well today, so I've finished work early. Been looking after our sums, but do you know what? I've been really looking forward to the show tonight because obviously we haven't had Pete on before. Follow a lot of what Pete does, so really excited to have him on tonight, and hopefully he can give us some positive news, sprinkle a bit of positivity, because I think we're all just waiting for some news, aren't we? So if Pete can bring us some positivity to the show tonight, then I'm all for it. But yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good.
Good stuff. I bet he's thinking, you boys are an impatient bunch. You just want it all now, don't you? We'll definitely get his opinion in there. But look, before we get him in, massive thanks. Well over 100 already in the chat. Welcome all this evening, the likes of Claire Grinnell, Jimmy. Welcome, Jimmy. The Brandy and Blaze is back in the business. Great to have you in there, Jimmy. Kamal, Geordie Toon for Life, Jason Scott, Jimmy Watt. Of course, Lisa, our resident spanner, Lisa Moan, Paul Gallant, hope you're well, and many more. Thank you for coming and joining us. And look, we tried to get Pete on for a while now, watched and looked at a lot of what he's done in the journalism world, and it's a pleasure to get Peter O'Rourke from the Football Insider. So let's get him in. How you doing, Pete?
Hi guys, you all right?
Evening, mate. All right?
All good.
Very good, mate. Thank you. Busy
No
time,
problem.
but you guys are all looking forward to it, I'm sure, with lots of transfer speculation surrounding Newcastle as well. But yeah, you've done one good piece of business already, and I'm sure there'll be more signings to be made before that transfer window slams shut at the start of September.
Definitely. Look, you touched on something there, and we kind of did just before you came on, in that, we kind of last night, we're looking at our window so far. We've got Sandra Tonali in, and we're looking at, has it been a good window so far for Newcastle United? Were we kind of expecting more? In the chat, it was kind of like mixed on opinions from someone outside of it all, and obviously reporting on it. How do you assess Newcastle's summer so far in terms of not just who they've brought in, but who they're potentially looking at? Would you say it's been a good window at this point?
Summing it up, I'd probably say it's been a steady window, a bit like since Eddie Howe's been in charge. They haven't gone crazy in the transfer market. They've waited for their top targets and tried to get them, and he's gelled them into the team, which he did so successfully last season with Newcastle finishing in the top 4 as well. Remember, if Newcastle fans are feeling a bit impatient or a bit edgy right now, you left it late to get Alex Isak last summer window as well, and he was a great sign as well, and I would expect a big season from him this coming season. So yeah, still think plenty to be done for Newcastle. They are looking specific targets. They've got their central midfielder in Tonoli, who I think could be a great signing for them, a world-class player for me, at a good age as well. I think he will only get better and better. But I think for Newcastle fans and Premier League fans in general, they're going to have to be patient with him. It's going to be a big step up going to the Premier League, coming from Serie A as well. So I think Newcastle fans will give him that time. They will support him as well, because it's going to take him time to settle into a new country, a new league, new teammates as well. But I think his class is undoubted. And I'm sure he will definitely fulfill his potential at Newcastle. So an exciting signing for the Geordie faithful to look forward to seeing him in the black and white stripes as well. But yeah, Eddie Howe and the recruitment team definitely working hard and getting more signings in. We know Steve Nixon is always out and about and checking on players as well. So I'm sure there's been lots of scouts at the recent Euro under-19s, also the recent under-21s championships as well, where England went on and won the tournament as well. Some top-class talent was on show there as well, including your own Anthony Gordon, who ended up player of the tournament as well. So he's another one that I'm looking forward to seeing what he does this season. It's a bit of a difficult one last year when he arrived in January, just to try and break into the team, as Eddie Howe didn't really make too many changes to that lineup. But yeah, I'm expecting a big season from Anthony Gordon as well. So, but yeah, no need to be too worried yet. Just the one signing in, I'd still expect at least maybe another 2 or 3 before the window closes.
Some reassuring words there from Pete. I think everyone's nice and calm after that. So yeah, good start, Pete. Great stuff. But you touched on one thing. I just want to come to you, Chris. Pete mentioned that, you know what I'm going to say, don't you?
I know what you're going to say. 2 words.
Yeah, but Pete mentioned that Sandro Tonali's he's 23. He's a good age. Is he just a good age?
I'm gonna have to explain this to Pete, aren't we? Gonna have to be. We always go on, Pete. If you haven't seen the show, we always go on about great age. And if we say a player's like mid-20s, early mid-20s, we say he's a great age. So when you said good age, you could probably see us all smiling because we were thinking, he's not good, he's great, he's a great age. That's what Pete's referring to. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. But look, lots and lots to talk about. Although there hasn't been too much movement today, there is still lots up in the air with Newcastle United, and we might as well start and look back through it. We had a really interesting conversation with regards to Harvey Barnes. Harvey Barnes has been linked quite heavily over the last week or so with Newcastle. There has been some updates from various different sections, including yourself, Pete. There was another report from Scott Wilson this morning that's come out increasingly confident of being able to wrap up the Harvey Barnes deal before the start of next week. From your perspective, Pete, where do you see the Harvey Barnes deal? And the reason why I say this is because, we had a really good conversation, and me, Richie and Chris both kind of had different opinions on this Harvey Barnes deal, as well as everyone in the chat. Some people think that it might be a deal that they're looking at, but not as heavily as what's been reported. Some say it's definitely going to happen. Where do you see this Harvey Barnes deal from your perspective at this moment in time?
Yeah, from my perspective, I think this is pretty far advanced for me. From what I'm hearing, personal terms are agreed pretty much between Harvey Barnes and Newcastle. The player is keen to make that move to St James's Park as well. It's just a matter of it thrashing out the fee with Leicester City, and Newcastle have got a benchmark. They've got the James Maddison deal to Tottenham to work off. Obviously, he went to Tottenham for £40 million when he was also a Newcastle target as well. So I think Newcastle are hoping they can get Harvey Barnes for a similar fee. I still expect this deal, maybe like a lot of other journalists are suggesting, probably get done early next week, something like that. It is quite well advanced. I know you guys do think that maybe there's not as much in it as suggested, but it's a player that Eddie Howe really likes, and all the Newcastle scouts as well are big admirers of Harvey Barnes. The thing, he ticks a lot of boxes for Eddie Howe, and we know he likes Premier League proven players, and Harvey Barnes definitely offers that. Again, he's a good age, maybe a great age, as you guys would say, to come into the team as well. I think he's got obviously he showed at Leicester what he can do. He scores goals, he creates goals, and I think with better players in a better team, we'll see an even better Harvey Barnes. So lots to be excited for, I think, for Newcastle fans for Harvey Barnes. He might not be a big name with some of the other names that Newcastle have been linked with, but I think he'll definitely be an effective signing for Newcastle. And the key here is the player wants to come. He wants to come and work under Eddie Howe. And I think at 35, maybe 40 million, I think it's a good deal for Newcastle as well, because some of the price tags of the other potential transfer targets are a lot higher than that. So I think Harvey Barnes, if he does finalise that move to St James's Park and come in and hit the ground running, and that's what Eddie Howe wants from his new signings.
Yeah, great point. Great points made by Pete. Chris, I'll come to you on this. I think we might have touched on this yesterday, but I'll come back to this again, is that what was interesting is being reported sort of from the Leicester side of things that he was rested for a sort of a behind closed doors friendly. For you, could that be potentially telling on the fact that they don't want to risk him getting injured, or maybe he doesn't want to risk getting injured, in terms of how far down the line this might actually be?
Yeah, no, definitely. When something like that happens, you can see that the club are trying to protect the asset, and I totally get it, because the player obviously wants to move. If Leicester want rid, obviously, unfortunately, Leicester got relegated, so Leicester are going to have to, bring in or recoup as much money as they can. They're going to have to sort themselves out for their championship season ahead. So they can't really afford to have a potentially 35, 40, 45 million pound player sitting on their medical table in a behind closed door after getting injured in a behind closed doors friendly. So I do understand why they're doing that. And you could say, Pete, that that would indicate that perhaps he is on his way out the door, whether that to be Newcastle or anybody else. But I would say whenever a player doesn't play or is rested, it would indicate that that's probably the case, because really, if he was staying for this coming season ahead and he's not reported as injured, you'd think that they want to try and get as many minutes in the tank for him as possible.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with you on this. Forget everyone else we're potentially linked with at the moment. Just focusing on Harvey Barnes right now. If he does in fact sign for Newcastle, how good do you think he could be at this club with Eddie Howe at the helm?
I mean, we've seen, haven't we, since Eddie Howe come in? And Pete, you were big on Eddie Howe, even before he became Newcastle manager. I had my reservations, I'll be honest. Did a fantastic job at Bournemouth, but I think, naturally, certainly from the outside looking in, when you're an opposition fan and then you see someone get relegated and then they're out the game for what? I think he was out the game for 12, 18 months. And then he comes in and we just had our takeover, and, we're getting linked with Allegri, we're getting linked with Conte, we're getting linked with all these different top quality, high stature managers. And then we bring in Eddie Howe, and it was a bit like, ooh. But the reason I'm going down the Eddie Howe route to answer this question, by the way, is because I think any player coming in under this ownership, that Eddie Howe and his coaching staff and the owners and Dan Ashworth, etc., anyone that they're interested in, they want to bring in, is very exciting for me, because it's not just on a whim. It's not because they've watched one game and gone, oh, he looks decent, why don't we bid for him? Like you see, you do genuinely see some clubs do that, because you can't prove it, but if they have a good World Cup or a good Euros and the players come out of nowhere and then they get signed for 20, 30, 40 million, and then they sign and you think, wow, that was a mistake. But with this ownership and the way that we do our dealings, Pete may disagree, but I get the impression that it's meticulous. They've been looked at a lot. All things considered, attitudes, the way they hold themselves, everything about the player. So if a Harvey Barnes was to come in, not only, as Pete's just said, I keep getting my fingers mixed up, as Pete's just said, are we bringing in an experienced Premier League player who we know can do the business in a very poor Leicester side last year, by the way, and he's consistently done it over the last few seasons. We're bringing in a player whose ceiling he's probably even nowhere near at the minute. And look what Eddie Howe did with some of our players, the likes of Joe Linton, Shah, Longstaff. These are players that we'd written off personally, and we're Newcastle fans, watch them every week. and we're going, when the owners come in, right, we need to get rid of him, we need to get rid of him. And then all of a sudden, we're now like, we love Joe Linton, Fabian Schär's probably had the best season that he's had in a Newcastle shirt. And then all these signings that we're bringing in, every single one's hitting the button. And then you start thinking, wow, like if he's bringing in, these elite players, these top level players, and their ceiling's already high, imagine where he can push them to. So for me, yeah, it's exciting. You know my feelings on Ashley Barnes. God, no, you know my feelings on Harvey Barnes. We're not going Ashley Barnes. No, let's calm down a minute. I think I've got my Chris Wood connection going on. Yeah. It's not happening. Just to be sure. Not a great age. But yeah, in terms of Harvey Barnes, you can see why Eddie Howe's interested in him. And as I say, and this has been the biggest criticism, I'm being a bit harsh on Richie now because you may tag this on. This has been the biggest criticism of some of our wingers, such as ASM, in that the numbers haven't quite been hit. And Harvey Barnes has consistently hit those numbers. So for him to come into a high-performing, high-press Newcastle side who are coached implicitly by Eddie Howe and his team, where could Harvey Barnes go? So it's exciting.
Definitely. I was actually going to come to Richie with something else before I go back to Pete. Something was starred in the chat, and am I right? You're a bit of a plane spotter, aren't you? You like to spot a plane now and again. I've heard there's been a few rumblings today of planes. I think it might have been Stu that put it in the chat.
Well, we've used to do the playing things. Me and Dad, even Chris was involved when lockdown was on.
I loved it, mate.
Obviously, during the lockdown, originally it was very quiet because obviously we were in Mike Ashley, so it was literally just following Mike Ashley helicopter up and down from Shirebrook and back. That was pretty much it. But no, there was a rumor. I think Ian, who's Syntax there, I think everyone knows who he is on NUFC Twitter, had said there was a helicopter would come up from Leicester this afternoon. But obviously we don't know if a deal's actually been agreed yet, so you can't imagine the player travelling up to the northeast unless something had already been agreed. But the way Newcastle's transfer dealings are now, and obviously PT is more stuff than what we ever do, so he would know how far the deal's down the line, whether the player would be travelling to the northeast or not. And obviously props from what he's hearing, and we know that leaks and news coming out of the clubs now is like very, very hard to get from reliable sources. We'll just probably have to wait and see on that unless Pete can confirm anything regards any helicopter trips from Leicester today.
Are you a plane spotter, Pete? By any chance?
No, not a plane spotter. Not yet, anyway. I'm maybe at a great age to becoming a plane spotter soon, but just right now, maybe not. But yeah, as I said, this is why we love the transfer window. We get all these rumours of people tracking planes to see who's maybe flying into Newcastle Airport to see if they're coming to join Newcastle United as well. I haven't heard anything that Harvey Barnes is on a helicopter up to Newcastle. It's not that far from Newcastle, from Leicester to Newcastle. I'm sure you could go up in a car, never mind a helicopter. But it's one of those. I'm still pretty confident that this deal will get done and Harvey Barnes will be in the famous black and white stripes come next season. And I think, as Chris mentioned earlier, I think under the tutelage of Eddie Howe, I think Harvey Barnes will just get better and better, and you'll probably see him back in that England squad sooner rather than later as well. If he goes and does well at Newcastle and playing in the Champions League as well next season, it's going to be a big thing, I think, for Harvey Barnes and a number of Newcastle's transfer targets.
Pete, just before we move on to a different topic, are you actually hearing anything regards a fee? Because there was various different outlets are saying different. Like there was one that was called yesterday at 25 million. I believe that if we actually, I think Scott Wilson actually posted this morning as well. Whereabouts is it? Wilson. Scott Wilson from the North Echo mentioned 35 million up front with 5 million add-ons. Obviously, there's a big difference there, and it's a talking point that we've discussed in depth. We see him as if you say 25, 30 million for him, we'd all snap your hands off for him. But when you start getting to the 40 to 50 mark, you start thinking, could that be better, spent better elsewhere? Have you heard anything definite on a fee potentially at all, Pete?
Yeah, I think Scott's quite close to it there. I think it'll be around the 35 to 40 million mark. Obviously, Leicester have got the benchmark of James Maddison, and he had a year less on his contract when they decided to sell him to Tottenham as well. So I think Harvey Barnes has got 2 years left on his contract. So that might give Leicester a bit more security as well. But yeah, I think they'll think we got 40 million for James Maddison. Can we get similar for Harvey Barnes? And that's probably the numbers that they'll be working off. Leicester already planning for life without Harvey Barnes. As they know he's going to leave. They're all scouring the transfer market right now for wingers to replace him as well, and they will probably prefer to get this deal done sooner rather than later. So it gives their recruitment teams time to go out there and get a couple of replacements for the likes of Maddison and Harvey Barnes as well. So I think 35-40 million, I know it sounds expensive, but I think for a good English player who's Premier League proven and who I think has the potential to get even better, I think it's a good piece of business by Newcastle.
Just one more before we move on from Barnes. Lots of people that watched the channel in the chat last night was talking about why it's taking so long. I think we even discussed it as a three, why it might be taking so long for this deal. You know, if we want a player at a reasonable price, as it seems is what's been reported, why it hasn't been done already? In your opinion, Pete, why do you think maybe Newcastle haven't quite yet rubber stamp this bid gone in for Harvey Barnes at this stage?
Yeah, I think obviously I did report on it a while ago, I think last week, that Newcastle ideally would like to sell someone to make room in the squad and boost their transfer kitty to allow them to go and spend that money on Harvey Barnes. It has gone a bit quiet on potential outs from Newcastle. Obviously, lots of talk that Alan St-Maximin would be sacrificed by Eddie Howe to try and raise funds and free up space in the squad as well for Newcastle. So there's been talk of potential move to Saudi. That's gone a bit quiet as well for St-Maximin. And then European clubs, I don't think there'll be many clubs who could maybe afford Alan St-Maximin as well. There's been talk of maybe interest from Italy as well. I don't see many French clubs, apart from PSG, being able to afford Alan St-Maximin either. So it's a difficult one for Newcastle. I think Eddie Howe would prefer the tried and trusted of Harvey Barnes rather than the mercurial talent of Alan St-Maximin. As Newcastle fans, I suppose he excites you, but frustrates you at equal measure sometimes, because he's undoubtedly got the talent and he does get you off your seat when you watch him as a neutral. He's such an exciting player, but maybe doesn't have that end product. Like I think Richie said earlier, you look at the numbers between Harvey Barnes and Alan St-Maximin, and they are quite vast. To be fair, Harvey Barnes scored more goals, created more goals as well. So I think that's what Eddie Howe looks at these days. He looks at the straight facts, and the stats don't lie when you look at it, that Harvey Barnes does produce more in the final third, and that was in a struggling Leicester team last year. So that's why he's probably thinking, I want to get Harvey Barnes into a team that's going to be hopefully challenging for the top four again and competing in the Champions League as well. But yeah, there is something in that talk that Newcastle would like to free up space in the squad and bring some money in before sanctioning this deal for Barnes.
No, it's a fair point. And Mark Taylor's just put on, great to see you, Mark, in the chat as always. Leicester have to get higher earners off the wage bill. Clubs can play on that to get the price down. He believes he'll be surprised if they had a relegation clause in their contract, which is a great point, because I don't think anybody expected Leicester to get relegated last season. So that's also a good point. We had the similar conversation as boys a few weeks ago when we were linked with Maddison. Some people were saying, oh, it might go later on into the window. Maddison was never going to wait that long to get the move, and neither were Leicester, because they've got a championship season that they're preparing for. They're going to need these players off the wage bill as soon as possible. But you touched on a point there, Pete. We'll touch on it just now. You mentioned about the comparison. Richie, you talked about it as well. We put this up last night, and you know, that's Premier League this season in terms of games started, goals, assists, minutes. People can put their arguments wherever they want, but the goals, they don't tell a lie. And like you said, Chris, that was in a relegated team. His actual performance in goals were even better the season previous. So Harvey Barnes, although not the kind of glitz and glamour signing that we all, I think, would love to have with whatever player he is, definitely an upgrade on what we've already got. I think we can all agree on that. But I believe, welcome John to the chat. Harvey Barnes is a talent and will improve Newcastle United. So there you go, John Sinclair. Welcome to the chat. And yeah, he concurs with what we've said. But I believe we have to play the tune.
Super chat received.
Okay, thank you very much for your super chat, Ian. £10
Cheers, Ian.
channel. Everything Eddie and the recruitment team have done so far has been for a good reason. They have not let us down, and we should trust their judgment. And yeah, I don't think anyone on this panel will disagree with that. That's for sure. And a great point that you've raised as well. I have to mention housekeeping, of course. 360 plus in the chat. Thank you all for tuning in tonight for the channel. Get your questions in for Pete. We've got loads of questions already, but we'll fire to him very, very soon. So get your questions in. Thank you for watching. And if you haven't already, click the like button. 400 likes, boys. Sound good?
Yeah.
Man,
Have we hit 400 last night yet? Have we done
think
that
We
yet?
were 390 with 396 before the show went live.
If anyone hasn't watched last night's show, just go on there and have a watch after this, and make sure you click the like. Get us to 400, and let's get us to 400 on this one. We've got 360 plus in the chat. We can get to 400, of course we can. And whilst you're there, subscribe. We're getting close to that 150 away to 6k subscribers, moving nicely up on those algorithms as well, and keep everything loaded, and join the loaded family. That's what I say, and I'm sure the boys will agree. But are there any deep firing questions that have popped up that we can get to, Pete, before we go on to the conversations?
Yeah, there's been just I was going to bring it up because obviously we've been talking about Harvey Barnes, obviously, and DK35's brought up this one. Fingers crossed the Barnes deal. So my computer's been slow tonight, so you've probably read it before I do. Fingers crossed the Barnes deal is a cover for something better, because he offers hard work, but that only gets you so far. 40 million is a joke. That could go on a more important position like left back Hernandez. I think the one thing we've got to say is, obviously, yes, we'd all love Theo Hernandez from Ace, but you've got to remember, would he be interested in the project? All that sort of stuff as well. So I don't know. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that, Pete?
Yeah, obviously an ambitious target. Theo Hernandez is a top player, but AC Milan have no interest in selling him. I know they've obviously offloaded Sandro Tonali to Newcastle. That was always to balance the books as well. So I don't think they want to lose Hernandez as well as Tonali in the same transfer window. That would be catastrophic for AC Milan as well. They want to be keeping hold of their best players and building on what they've done over the last couple of seasons, as they want to be challenging for Serie A and Champions League again next season. So yeah, it seems highly unlikely to me that Newcastle could get Hernandez, but it just shows where Newcastle are shopping right now. The current regime are really up there in the market for these top players as well, because who would have thought that 18 months, 2 years ago, that Newcastle would even be mentioned in the same breath as some of these top players across Europe. But yeah, they're an attractive proposition with the project that's going on right now, and obviously having Champions League football probably earlier than expected is a huge bonus for Newcastle and the recruitment team, that they can use that to try and sell the project to their transfer targets as well. But yeah, I think probably have to look elsewhere for a left back rather than Hernandez. Obviously,
we'll stick in Milan and we'll talk about left backs, because this is obviously one that has been banded about over the last few weeks, and that's DeMarco from Inter Milan. Are you hearing anything on this, Pete? Because obviously there has been a few. One report, I can't remember when this was. I think it was last week. This one may have been up last week. Pete, I think you might know this one when it was put up. Jack Taylor might be last week, wasn't it? Told Newcastle have approached Inter over move for Federico DeMarco. Are you hearing anything, Pete, from any of your sources regards to this player?
Yeah, I haven't heard that one myself, to be honest. Again, ambitious target, I think, from Newcastle, that they're actually looking at. Somebody like DeMarco, who had a great season for Inter, impressed a lot during their run to the Champions League final as well, and had a good final against Manchester City as well. Again, I don't see this deal happening. Newcastle are obviously maybe putting feelers out there to see if there would be any chance of luring him to England as well. But obviously a lot of these links with the Italian clubs is probably down to the financial situations that they find themselves in. We know Inter need money for their own transfer plans. That's why they're trying to offload a few players to get a deal done for Romelu Lukaku again. But DeMarco has been a key man for Simone Inzaghi's side. So I don't think Newcastle can get this deal done. You're probably looking at 40 plus million even to get to the table and discuss a deal. And I don't think Newcastle probably have that budget right now to go and do that. As I said, a left back is a priority target for Eddie Howe's team this summer as well, but I don't think it'll be DeMarco, and any money they've got left over in the budget will probably be looking towards a centre back.
Interesting. If there was a left back out there that you think that we might go for, who would you have your money on at this point now in the window?
At this point in the window, it's a difficult one. Anthony Robinson at Fulham was somebody that Newcastle were really interested in, and I've watched him. He had a great season for Fulham in their first season back in the Premier League last year, and USA international as well. He would have been perfect for Newcastle down that left-hand side. He loves the bomb forward. He's got great pace as well, but he ended up signing a new long-term deal at Fulham last week as well, so that ends any chance of that move happening as well. And I'm sure you guys have talked plenty about it in previous shows. Kieran Tierney is the name that's been talked about probably most of the summer from Arsenal. It's gone a bit quiet on the Scottish left back right now as well. Top player on his day, great experience, great age, as you guys would say. I think he would come in. I think he's a leader as well. I think he'd be a brilliant figurehead in that dressing room as well if he was to come, because wherever he's been, Celtic and Arsenal, he's also been a leader in the dressing room as well. But injuries have really held him back during his time in England as well. And I think privately that's maybe putting Newcastle off from firming up their interest in Kieran Tierney. But I know one thing, that Eddie Howe is a huge fan of him and even tried to sign him when he was at Bournemouth and when Kieran Tierney was at Celtic. So he's a player that's long been on his radar. So still think if they get any encouragement from Arsenal that a deal could be done at a decent price, Kieran Tierney would again tick a lot of the boxes, as he is Premier League proven. He's got the right character, because as I think one of you lads mentioned earlier, Eddie Howe is very big on that. He just won't go and sign big names. He will do his background checks on players and make sure that they can come in and adapt to his ways and fit in with the rest of the squad as well. And he's all about teamwork and the team spirit as well, I think Eddie Howe as well. So somebody like Kieran Tierney would be ideal for that. While obviously some of the other targets, there might be some question marks over their character and coming into a new league as well. That's why Eddie Howe over the years does prefer to sign players UK based, because they are used to the rigors of British football and can stand up to the test of that, which is there's no room for error when you do come to the Premier League, because it comes at you thick and fast and you got to be ready for the challenge.
We did hear Pete on the grapevine. I forget who it was from, boys. If you can recall, please do say. But we did hear on the grapevine that apparently within the dressing room or behind the walls at Newcastle, there's a thing called a no dickheads policy. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But yeah, marries up exactly with what you're saying there. You know, character and you know how the players adapt and how they carry themselves really is hugely important. And I think for us on this journey as well, it will be really important, because what we don't want is, you know, to bring in a player who's going to potentially upset the dressing room, somebody who's, you know, maybe a bit of a prima donna or, you know, a big time Charlie. We don't need that, because the reason that we got to where we got to last season was purely down to, you know, the work rate, the effort. I think you know, it's fair to say that, you know, we were one of the most hardworking teams in the Premier League last season. Like, our press at times was just ridiculous mid-game, and all it takes is one bad egg or bad apple to kind of upset that. And Eddie Howe, as far as we've heard, Eddie Howe is, you know, totally against that, and it's all about the team rather than individuals.
Yeah. Definitely. The Kieran Tierney one's interesting, because that was another one that was really heavily talked about with Newcastle right at the beginning of the summer. And then it's just all gone quiet. Nobody's really talking about it. Some people said it was the fee. Some people were saying that Arsenal didn't want to get rid of him. You know, it's one of them that, you know, it could potentially bubble up again and just come out of nowhere. But that'd be an interesting one. Would you, Richie, Chris, just really quickly, would you boys still be happy with that, considering we'll be linked with arguably the best left back in the world in Hernandez and DeMarco, who was in the Champions League final? Would you still be happy with us going out and getting someone like Kieran Tierney and bringing him into Newcastle, you know, as our main first choice left back?
I think it's like a lot of players that we've been linked with who've had up and down seasons, whether it be for form or injuries or anything like that. I think it all depends on the deal. Obviously, you wouldn't want to be having your eyes taken out with the injury record he's had over the last few years. That's, we're on a tight budget, we're made to believe, and spending the sort of figure that's being quoted for Kieran Tierney. A deal for us that would probably work better in Newcastle's eyes is a loan with an obligation to buy. But the thing is, though, are Arsenal really going to do that sort of deal for what you've got to class as a rival now? And Mark Taylor's admitted we're a rival now. Spurs have dropped out of the Big Six compared to him. What are his thoughts? So I think it depends on that sort of thing. You don't want to be paying, potentially 35 to 50 million, the price that were quoted for him again. Seems a common sort of valuation when it comes to Newcastle, 35 to 50 million, doesn't it? I don't think you really want to be paying those sort of figures. But to be fair, does he enhance the left back position like we discussed with Harvey Barnes? Yes, he does. And obviously, if that's the person that Eddie Howe wants, you've got to trust his judgment. His judgment's been spot on so far. So the Newcastle fans will give everyone a chance, no matter who walks through the door. They'll give him a chance. And obviously, they've just got to prove it, and hopefully, injury records improve and whatever, and having perhaps a little bit of a squad, and obviously with 4 competitions this year, squad rotation and rest, that might help. Naturally, we saw how it worked for Callum Wilson towards the end of the season, the squad rotation when they had Isak and Wilson foot, and Wilson was on fire. That's the last third of the season after he came back from the World Cup, a bit quiet, but then you got to end of March, from then to the end of the season, he was on fire. No one in the top 5 leagues in Europe scored as many goals as him in that period of time. So it can work. It keeps people fresh. Whether the player likes it or not, it's different. But if it's best for the squad and the team and the player, so be it. So I think it all depends on how it's managed. But we'll have to wait and see on that one, Pete.
Definitely. And look, I think we have to play that music again because we have
received.
Just received another super chat. Thank you very much for your $5, GK.
Cheers, GK.
Next time, and we'll get it out there. Never ever leave it blank if you're going to give a donation to the channel. Put your question out, we'll prioritize it. Even better, question for Pete. Let him, give him a question about anything Newcastle United related. But we'll come back to another story actually that you put out, Pete, and it'll be really interesting to see if this one materializes. And it's a player that you are aware of. And he plays for Sporting Lisbon, and it's Iniasso. You'd put out a little something saying that Newcastle were potentially interested in Iniasso, and we're certainly in the race. Now, his future's kind of been up in the air this summer. Teams have been linked with him, Newcastle included. Where do we see that deal and potential for him moving on at this stage at the moment?
Yeah, I think there is potential in this deal for Gonzalo Ignacio, top player, top young player. He's at a great age as well. He's only going to get better. So I think for Newcastle, they're not just the only club who are in the market for him. Liverpool have been strongly linked with him as well, as have some other top European clubs. But it shows where Newcastle are shopping right now. They are competing with these top clubs for the top young players across Europe. He's got a lot of experience as well. He's played in Europe for Sporting Lisbon as well. And the key here for me is he's a left-sided centre-back, but he can also possibly fill in at left-back if needed. And that's probably what Eddie Howe and his recruitment team see the big benefits here in Ignacio as well. So that's probably why he is quite high up on their list as well. The issue here is what's our Sporting Lisbon going to ask for his signature as well. There is a big release clause in there, which I don't think anybody will really want to pay. But I think if you're looking around the 35 to 40 million pound marks for him, he could be a good signing. He's got huge potential. You're buying potential here, I think, if you're buying Ignacio. You just never know with foreign players when they come to the Premier League. Are they going to adapt to it and suit the style of English football as well? But I think Ignacio, from what I've seen of him, he's a top young player. I think he's only going to get better and better with age as well. And I think for Newcastle, it could be an astute piece of business if they can get him because, as I said, a number of other clubs are looking at him and he could fill 2 positions, and that's what Eddie Howe's going to be looking for. in this transfer market, he's going to be looking at players who can maybe play a couple of positions because he's going to have to rotate that squad with Champions League football, and there's going to be lots of demands on his players next season as well. So to improve that squad, the more versatility added to it, the better. And that's why I think Ignacio is somebody who's definitely on Newcastle's list.
Richie, I know you'd mentioned in the essay before that what kind of player is he? What could he potentially bring to our back line? Because it's clear that we're looking to develop and improve our back line. Question mark still about Jamal Lascelles. Is he going to stay? Is he going to be moved on? If he does get moved on, we need someone either as a first choice right centre back to Shaw or potentially a backup to become that. You know, is he that type of player in your eyes?
It's interesting. Obviously, Pete's just mentioned there. Obviously, predominantly plays on the left. He's 21-year-old, still got 3 years in his contract at Sporting. So obviously, I think the figure you quoted, that was about 50 million euros. Was it, Pete? About, was that like a sort of starting budget of what you've been led to believe? Obviously, great age, 21, as we've just mentioned. And obviously, he's international already, and he's got European experience as well. What you've got to think is he going to be a similar sort of Portuguese import like Ruben Diaz? Is he going to be the next one to cut the Premier League from Portugal and that eye, or is he going to be someone who doesn't hit the ground running? We don't know. But the interesting thing is, obviously, he can play on the right a little bit as well. But the aspect is he can also, it's like the Sven Botman, predominantly left centre back, but can play on the right as well. So if that was someone that the firm they're interested in, it'd be interested how they're going to set up at the at the centre back position. And to be fair, it's something we discussed also, is that's providing the staying in the same formation of they've played last season. There could be a chance where, we look at the way that City ended up last season with the centre backs pushing out, and then it could be something like that. We don't know. So we're basing everything on Newcastle playing 4-3-3, but as we know, you couldn't turn over a whole squad last year. That might not be the formation Eddie Howe sees long term. He's set up a formation that worked best for the personality he had last season. But obviously, you talked about Ignacio there. We've got the comparison with Shaw, so obviously people can look at obviously different attributes compared to what they've got Shaw at the moment. And it's pretty much what we looked at last night. He's a bit more of a, you look at the defensive side of things, Shaw's a little bit more solid on that front, but that technical area that, Eddie Howe likes in these players, you can see there's a big difference between Fabian Shaw and Ignacio. And obviously, we mentioned this when we discussed Disasi last night as well. Big, strong boy and stuff like that as well. And the technicality, the comfort on the ball, to be able to, play, ball winning, ball playing, that's all the sort of things that Eddie Howe's looking for. And no matter who these links that would go for, with Ignacio, Disasi, Todabo, anyone like that, you're looking at all the very similar attributes. And what's going to come down to is, out of all of those on that list, which one is the best deal for Newcastle in this window, but strengthens it, but also allows to strengthen the rest of the squad as well?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a player that needs to come in that is going to be eventually the first choice. Fabian Shaw's 32 years old right now, although he had a sensational season for Newcastle. He's 32, and there will be a decline there at some point. So we need a player that's going to come in that, like every other player, Bruno, Sven Botman, Isak to an extent, although he started against Liverpool and then got injured, but he would have been the same had Wilson been fit. Start off the bench, earn their way into the team, and then stay there. So we need that type of player now. Ignacio, left-footed, can also play right centre back as well, which is great. We talked about that versatility, of course, but it goes back to the potential fee. I think what you put on the report, Pete, you're looking at around sort of the 50 million mark. Chris, would you be paying 50 million for a centre back in this window? Do you think we need to be paying that sort of money for a centre back in this window, or would you be looking at maybe a younger player that maybe isn't as valued as high as Ignacio?
I think you hit the nail on the head, to be honest, Pete. I think there's two ways of us going, two options, if you like, and that's either to bring in centre back to basically challenge Shah immediately and probably take Shah's place, and then Shah becomes the understudy, for maybe cup games or when we want to rest some players, or if there's an injury or suspension, the player who's brought in is predominantly going to be the main centre back pairing with Sven Botman, or we go for that younger model who, in time will replace Fabian Shah in maybe say, I don't know, a year, 18 months, 2 years even. And I suppose that's up to the club to kind of work out what we need, because for me, especially towards the back end of the season, I felt like, Shah did his best to finish the season, even though he started it absolutely brilliantly, not just because of that goal, by the way, it's at James's Park, where we beat and he hits that belter against Nottingham Forest, but defensively, he was solid. He was part of the joint best defence in the league. So I don't want to be too critical of Fabian Shah, but, in time, I think he's 31, as Richie just flashed up there. He's not getting any younger. If you were to ask me, what would I do? I think I would probably side on the side of go for the younger one with the hope of progressing them, because I also believe, I've kind of changed my mind on this now. I've also believed that I think Jamal Lascelles will stay regardless, because it's all well and good having 4 centre backs. Predominantly, I know we've got Dan Burn and Paul Dummett who can kind of shift in, but 4 main centre backs. But really, you probably need 5, because it's a really important position, obviously. And, you could argue that centre backs are kind of exposed the most for injuries. Obviously, both boxers. It can get quite jostly and injuries can happen. So I suppose you want to make sure that you've got enough fit and able centre backs, because otherwise, if you don't have proper centre backs playing at centre back, you can get caught out, especially in competitions such as the Champions League. So it's important to have that strength and depth. So me personally, I would probably go for the younger model, with view to replacing Fabian Shah eventually, because personally, I think Fabian Shah will be fine as our main right centre back this season. I might feel differently come the end of the season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting one. We'll wait and see. A couple more before we finish off with some questions with yourself, Pete. One that hasn't necessarily been reported on by yourself or Football Insider to a point, but one that came out today, and it's one that we're keeping an eye on particularly, is Loaded Boys, because we like this player a lot. And Aston Villa have apparently put an opening bid in for Moussa Diaby. Now, from our perspective, we don't want that to happen, because we're big fans of him and we'd like him to come to Newcastle. But from your perspective, one, do you see him going to Villa? And two, is there, in your opinion, any sort of noise about maybe Newcastle being linked with Diaby, and could that deal potentially be done this summer?
Yeah, he's a player who's been on Newcastle's radar for a while. I think after the initial takeover, there was talk that Diaby was one of Newcastle's top targets to try and bring in. But yeah, if you're dealing with Bayer Leverkusen, who are a very rich club themselves, then they will be looking top dollar for Moussa Diaby as well. I think the player himself now might be thinking of a move away. He wants to be playing at the highest level and to cement a place in that French national team as well. But top player. Arsenal have also been strongly linked with him as well, and they are looking in the market for some attacking reinforcements as well. I think, again, for Newcastle right now, maybe they don't have the budget this window to go and sign a Moussa Diaby if they're going to go out and spend £40 million in Harvey Barnes, which is definitely more advanced than Moussa Diaby right now as well. I don't think it's in the budget to go and sign Harvey Barnes and Moussa Diaby, as much as that would be a dream scenario for you Newcastle fans. I don't think that's going to be happening right now. But yeah, he's a player that the club do admire. If they do get indications that Bayer Leverkusen are willing to sell, I'm sure they might make a few inquiries for him. But I do think a deal for Diaby this summer transfer window seems unlikely, and it does look like Aston Villa are ready to go and spend big on him as well. But whether Villa can persuade him to make the move to Villa Park, that's up in the air right now, because I think the player himself ideally would like to join a club playing in the Champions League. as well. But that just shows competition for players right now as well, that you've got Aston Villa, who are not even in the Champions League and they're willing to spend big on top players as well. So it's harder and harder, this transfer market now for clubs to compete, and that shows what you're up against right now. But yeah, as we speak right now, I don't see Moussa Diaba being a Newcastle player come the end of this window.
Just to follow on from that, Pete, it's something we discussed last night, and other people will put in the chat, and it's also been mentioned again today that obviously there's potential, there's talks of Alan Saint-Maximin leaving. Now, there's a lot as this obviously participant Alexander Romo-Bode. I hope I've got that pronounced right. He said he doesn't agree buying with Chiesa when they have obviously Saint-Maximin, Jolin, Isak, Murphy, Willock. They can all play on the left, and obviously Harvey Barnes will be in the discussion as well. He thinks it's more of a priority on the right-hand side. And to be fair, I think the loaded panel have all said that as well. Now, obviously, Harvey Barnes is a left winger. Do you think this is one where it's a player where Eddie Howe really likes Harvey Barnes, but could see as a replacement that Alan Saint-Maximin is possibly leading to leave the club, or the club are looking to sell him and are trying to get a replacement in before that he leaves? Then obviously use the money for Alan Saint-Maximin to potentially go to the other side, the right wing.
Yeah, I think obviously Newcastle would like to cash in into Maximum because it will boost their transfer kitty to go and maybe get that left back and centre back. Those two other positions that Eddie Howe wants to bring in before the close of the window. Obviously, we know on his day that Maximum can be a world beater, but he probably just doesn't do it often enough, and that doesn't go down too well with Eddie Howe. He wants tried and trusted, and he knows what he's going to get with Harvey Barnes. He's going to get 100% effort. He'll be up and down that pitch on that left-hand side, helping his fullback out as well while getting forward. And he is a danger in that final third. He scores goals, provide goals as well. So I think he's more down that left-hand side than Alan to Maximum right now. I think Harvey Barnes, and that's why he's really pushing to try and get this deal done as well. So I think in an ideal world, if Newcastle are to make further signings and top-class signings after Ashley Barnes, nearly Harvey Barnes.
There we go.
Some money, yeah, exactly. We're on it. But I do think if he is going to go out and make some more big-name signings, he's going to have to be smart in the market and maybe raise funds. And unfortunately, that might mean sacrificing some Maximum.
Be interesting. Hopefully we can get both. But definitely we'll have to wait and see. Another one that's been thrown in, we might as well throw it in now, Chiesa from Juventus. Another one that's been linked. Apparently agents who have been in England talking to various different clubs. First off, do you see him moving to England? And secondly, have you any idea whether Newcastle are one of the teams that are apparently linked with him?
I think Juventus are trying to sell him to the Premier League. They want to raise money because of their financial situation as well, and they are going to be looking a lot of money for Enrico Chiesa, who top player on his day. He's had a few bad injuries in recent years as well, which has held him back. But I think for me, I don't see this happening either. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I think maybe Newcastle are just being used here by the Italian media, that Chiesa could be a target for them because Newcastle are a big deal now again in the transfer market with the ownership and Champions League football. So I don't see Chiesa being somebody that Eddie Howe will be pursuing right now. But when you do have a top-class player like that, a European Championship winner with Italy, he had a good tournament with Italy when they did win it a couple of years ago as well. You can't be surprised that Newcastle are mentioned with these players now. So I think that's the way things are now with Newcastle. When the top players do get mentioned in the transfer market, you normally see Newcastle associated with them right now as well. But I just don't see Eddie Howe really pushing for this one. He's on a huge deal at Juventus as well, so that would be a major stumbling block for any deal. I think he's on 150 grand plus, so I'm not sure he'd be a deal that Newcastle will be pursuing this window. That's personal terms and then a huge transfer fee that Juventus are looking for as well. But Juventus are openly shopping him around to see if there is any takers for him as well. And I think ideally they know where the riches are on offer these days. It's in the Premier League rather than the rest of Europe. So they're probably out there seeing if there is any potential buyers as well. But I don't think Newcastle are fully in the market for Enrico Chiesa right now.
You've broken all of our hearts, Pete.
Sorry.
You've broken all of our hearts.
OTRB, no Chiesa. Oh.
Plenty of time, lads. Plenty of time for more movement.
That's true. That is very, very true. But look, there's a few more questions. I know we've got you just for a tiny bit longer. But Richard, I don't know if you want to fire some questions at Pete regarding what people have put in the chat before he leaves.
Yeah, there's a good one here, and obviously I'll bring this one up now because it is something that's been mentioned in the press today by Kieran Kelly from the Chronicle. It's all about outgoings as well, because obviously, sorry, that one there. Do you have any serious idea of what Newcastle spent to stay with an FFP? But also, Tom Dixon mentions about obviously the outgoings. Start seeing players leaving. Now, the article that Kieran Kelly mentioned was about outgoings and also the wage bill, because obviously, you know, Chelsea have raised around 200 million in sales. So obviously, we would love to be able to raise 200 million from our outgoings, but we don't have the squad and the players of that capability to raise that sort of funds. But not just that, though, it's the fact that obviously it's the wage bill. The one I think one of the article says about they want to actually get about £300,000 a week off the wage bill for incomings, because obviously you've got a lot of high earners, and then we briefly touched on this, like people like Hendrick, Hayden, Fraser, all these sort of people are going to be high earners. So is this something that, delaying the incomings at the moment, Pete? Because obviously, a lot of, if these people were to go out on loan, obviously Newcastle have to, subsidise predominantly a lot of the wage, especially if they're dropping down to, you've probably got a couple of teams at the bottom end of the Premier League, Luton, who might be interested in taking some of these Premier League players, but they're probably at Championship level now, and there's not a lot of people, because of the contract that Mike Ashley and Lee Charnley put on them, are putting a lot of teams priced out of it, so we'd have to still subsidise a lot of it to get them off the books. So do you think this is the reason why there's a delay potentially in the incomes coming in?
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you make. Obviously, these players are on good contracts. Probably case in point would be Ryan Fraser. Doesn't figure in Newcastle's plans going forward as well, but he's on a good deal there financially, so he's well entitled not to. He's under contract, and I don't think the clubs that are interested in Ryan Fraser can get anywhere near his wages. There has been talk that Norwich are interested in the Scotland international as well, but that would be a loan deal. And they will be looking his wages subsidised by Newcastle as well. So that's what Newcastle are having to contend with right now as well. They've got a lot of unhappy players that are on the fringes who aren't really going to play a part for any house team next season, but they're still on the books. And we all know how important it is to get your 25-man squad for the Premier League, because the rest is left in the bomb squad, and you don't want that around the place, because that can maybe upset harmony in the dressing room and amongst the rest of the players as well. So there's a lot of players there at Newcastle that they would love to offload, but it's not as easy as that. The players aren't going to rush out the door unless it benefits them and they are getting what they feel they deserve on their wages. So you've got the likes of Manquillo, Jeff Hendrick, Ryan Fraser, Carl Darlow, I would expect would move on as well. There's been interest from Bournemouth and Leeds in him. He's had other clubs interested in him, but he's turned them down. Isaac Hayden's obviously had a tough time with injuries recently as well. I'd imagine he would probably move on in search of first-team football as well. But these players are on good contracts, so unless the interested clubs who want to take these players are able to meet the contract demands of these players, Newcastle might have to subsidise it, and that's why maybe we're not seeing too many exits at Newcastle right now as well. But they're going to have to do the work to clear the decks and try and bring so much money in to sort of boost Eddie Howe's transfer kitty for his own transfer plans.
I brought this up last night, and we had a good conversation about it. There are the apparent wages of some of these players, and it was something that we talked about last night. They are Premier League wages for a lot of those players, and there are Championship teams more so now than ever, probably outside even the top 5 of the Championship, that cannot afford to pay players those wages. So the point that you made, Pete, about having to subsidise is definitely one of those things. But and it could well be, as we've talked about, a reason why we're not able to go and sign the players that we want to. Someone put in the chat earlier, saying that, it's not that we can afford these players. Like, it's not about money with regards to the club, but actually it doesn't necessarily need to be about money. We know that money wise that we could go and buy anybody we wanted effectively, with the ownership and the wealth that they have. But we've got to stick to that FFP. We've got to stick to the wage budget. And it was talked about, and you might know a little bit more on this, Pete. It was talked about at the back end of last season that our wage bill is very, very high. It's over its limit, and we do need to cut our losses on some of these players. But equally, are some of these players just going to be happily ready to lose half of what they're earning right now? They've got families to feed. They've got children and various other things that they need to think about. And us as fans sometimes don't think about that, but that is a consideration there. But look, Fraser, £63,000 a week. Lewis, £50,000 a week. Hendrick, 50,000. Hayden, 50,000. That's big money there. Big money.
I just want to touch on a little bit. You mentioned there about players obviously having to think about their families and kids and stuff. Tell you what, I think there's a lot of people in this chat, the fan base and wherever, would love a snippet of their weekly wage to live on. Even if they took massive pay cuts in the way that the world's living at the minute, they can still afford to feed their family. It's just down to luxury items and stuff that they would have to do without. Sorry, but I tried that to be like a real world little comment on that. It's ludicrous amounts of money to be paid a week. Just to play football. And to be fair, these people haven't even been playing football apart from obviously Darlow, Hendrick on loan, Hayden went to Norwich, was injured, Fraser hasn't kicked the ball for ages, Lewis hasn't as well, Mankiel occasionally. It's a lot of money to do technically nothing.
Yeah, and all of, like you said, all of them have barely kicked a ball for Newcastle United in the last 2 years, and that's part of the problem. This hasn't been the only situation. That you look back to some of the other players. That we've had previously that we had to wait years for their contracts to run out. Henry Sarve, for example, was on big money at Newcastle. We had to wait years for him to go. We had Gouffran the same. He had a good championship season, but before that we wanted him to leave and he refused. There was other players going back that we've had to, under the previous ownership, that had given them big wages to sign for Newcastle, but then when we wanted them to leave, they refused to do so. These are the next group, and there's probably 2 or 3 that you maybe get some money, a little bit of money back for, but not much. But it's that wages that could be the key. Maybe those wages I mentioned last night could be potentially those wages that are used for Harvey Barnes, which maybe then we could go in and buy somebody of significant value with what's left. Who knows? But that's what we're playing with at the moment. And if the wage bill's high, that's definitely going to be part of the reason for it. What else have we got? Question wise,
I've got a very quick one for Pete. Sorry, I'm just gonna butt in here because Pete, I'm still reeling over no Chiesa. I'm still reeling over no Diaby. So I just want to ask you this one, just in your opinion, of course. But any kinds of news at all on Ryan Cherky from Lyon? Anything?
Afraid not. I don't think he'll be coming to Newcastle either this summer. But yeah, top player at Lyon, did very well at the Euros as well for France just recently as well. Top young player. He would tick a lot of boxes for Newcastle. He's at great age, as you all know. And he's a player with huge potential, but it does seem that Chelsea are trying to push forward in this deal as well. They're going down that route of trying to sign top young talent and developing them into becoming top stars, maybe signing someone like a Cherky who might not be on massive wages right now, but if they can tie him down to a long-term deal on decent wages, they can cover the cost that way. And that's what they're trying to do to get around FFP in their current transfer window, obviously offloading the number of players to Saudi Arabia, the new league out there, trying to reduce the amount of money that they've wasted probably over the last couple of transfer windows, Chelsea as well. But yeah, Cherky, top player. I'm sure Newcastle are well aware of him, as are a number of top clubs across Europe. But yeah, I don't see him as being on top of the agenda for Newcastle right now. So I don't think they'll move too far away from what they want. They want to bring that wide man in. Harvey Barnes is the top target. They want to bring in that left back, and they want to bring in a centre back if they're able to do with their budget, if there's anything left to do it. And I think those are the priority positions now for Eddie Howe, because everybody knew before this window, a new midfielder was the primary target for Newcastle, and they got that deal done for Sandro Tonali, hoping that might give Bruno Guimaraes more license to get forward and do what he can do in that final third.
Do you know, just touching on what? Sorry, I'm hogging this. Sorry, Pete. Just touching very briefly on what you said there. We've discussed. I mean, when we first signed Sandro Tonali, I thought, great, number 6. And then the more that I've read into him, and the more I've read articles about him, and people, obviously spoke highly of him and knew a lot more about him than what I did. They were saying that predominantly they can't see him as a number 6. And just adding on to what you were saying there, do you think there's a possibility that Newcastle could look to bring in a number 6? Because you're absolutely right that we believe that Eddie Howe wants to be able to release Bruno further forward. Do you think that's something that Tonali could maybe be shown or kind of developed in? Because I think he has played in a number 6 role, but he from what I've read and what I've heard, he tends to predominantly sit as like the number 8, i.e. in the right centre of the midfield. Do you think there's a possibility that Newcastle could be maybe interested in that number 6? Or do you believe that it is literally left back, winger, and most probably right centre back to either challenge Shah or be an understudy to Shah?
Yeah, I think they are still the 3 positions that Eddie Howe would like to bring in before the window closes. If there was a midfielder out there who suited Newcastle, I'm sure Eddie Howe would hope that maybe the club would go out there and bring him in as well. I think Tonali, the only thing that I'd have a concern with him is maybe the pace of English football. That's what he might struggle to adapt with, but I'm sure Eddie Howe will be working him really hard on the training pitch to make sure he's up to speed for the demands of Premier League football as well. He's a quality player on the ball. He will definitely add something to Newcastle's midfield next season as well. And I'm sure all you Newcastle fans can look forward to seeing him because he is a ball player. He's creative, and I'm sure he could gel with Bruno Guimaraes in that central midfield as well. But as I said, guys, I don't think the budget is there right now unless there is a number of outgoings for Newcastle to maybe bring in another midfielder or bring in another wide attacker, because even Newcastle don't even seem to be linked with a striker this window, with a lot of people claiming that maybe they should be. But it does seem Eddie Howe is happy with his options there of Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak as well. So they've got other players there like Anthony Gordon, who I mentioned at the very top of the show, can play in a number of positions. And I would expect a big season from him now he's settled into his new club.
Pete, obviously, I'm aware you need to go. Stu made a lovely comment in the chat. Just says, keeping us all humble tonight with obviously all of your transfer rumours. But just to finish on a little positive, as I know we have to go, it only has to be one name. Put a name out there that perhaps Newcastle fans haven't heard of, or apart from, say, Harvey Barnes, where you think could be wearing the black and white shirt by the end of this transfer window, and then we'll let you go.
Oh, right, put me on the spot here, lads.
If Stu says you've been keeping us all home, we're going to try to end on a positive.
Do we talk about him? Livramento, I think, could be one. Can play it right back and left back. I think there's a real possibility that could happen. I think he's interested in a move to Newcastle as well. The Champions League football, he would prefer moving there rather than potentially going back to Chelsea, who have shown an interest in getting him. So problem is with this one is Southampton's valuation is way above what Newcastle value him at right now as well. They're probably looking to get a deal done for between 15 to 20 million, while Southampton are holding out for 30 million as well. But I think there's an interesting market maybe to look out for Newcastle as well is the South American market. There hasn't been any sort of major moves, but I think that's a market that Newcastle's scouting team are looking more and more at as well. We've seen Chelsea make a few big signings from South America, so maybe look at potential Brazilians maybe making the move to St James's Park in these next couple of transfer windows, because it does seem you get value for money in that market right now, and somebody maybe who can produce the Samba football with Bruno Guimaraes for you Newcastle fans over the next windows.
Interesting.
Pete, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming and joining us on Loaded Mag NUFC. Just before you go, for anyone that isn't aware, where can they find you and tell us a bit about what it is that you do day to day and who for?
Yeah, been a journalist for God knows how long now, but yeah, I'm working for Footy Insider right now, trying to as their transfer correspondent, so cover all clubs all across Europe, not just focused on any one club as well. And you'll see most of my stuff on Twitter at SportsPeto, and that's mainly where I'll do the updates and everything else and links to stories. So yeah, you'll find me mainly on there.
Brilliant stuff. Pleasure as always, Pete. We'll let you go. And hopefully, maybe later on in the window, we can get you back in to talk more Newcastle, maybe a few more signings through the door on that stage, and many more great ages. I think you've done great age more than us tonight. Which is
up your game, lads. Up your game.
We do. We definitely will next time. Well, Pete, it's been a pleasure. You take care, mate.
Thank you, Pete.
Cheers, Pete.
See you guys. All the best.
Take care. Thank you, mate.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Great to have Pete on. Brilliant stuff. Check out Footy Inside if you haven't already. And check out Peter O'Rourke if you haven't. Check out numerous tweets that have gone out from Loaded with his Twitter out on there, and give him a follow. And hopefully we'll be getting back on the show later on in the window. Another great guest in the bank.
Get that button pressed twice.
Oh, I tell you what.
Woo.
Standing stuff. There we go.
Super chat received. Super chat received.
He wasn't bothered about the question. Oh, you give him a bonus one.
Give him a bonus one. Jason Scott bonus. Thank you for your $4.99 donation. Superb stuff.
There's also just another bit.
Just go on, mate. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, Lisa also mentioned that there's Tampa 2's donated another 5 memberships tonight again. Yes, so Tampa 2.
Thank you,
Tampa. Fantastic little family that we've got here. Just another little thing we did say, we'd actually mention Lisa obviously made us aware of something today. Obviously, Brett, who watches the show, watches the show a lot, usually in the chat. Obviously, we know that's had a few difficulties at home. Our condolences about hearing about your mum, unfortunately. And obviously, we heard that you haven't been well as well. So, look, get well soon, mate. All the Loaded lads and all the Loaded family in the chat are thinking about you. So, hopefully see you back in the chat soon, Brett.
Yeah. Super support of the channel. Always is very vocal on social media with anything that we put out Loaded. So, you're one of the community, 100%. And we're all behind you. So, hopefully, we'll see you back in soon. All the best, mate. Best wishes and prayers to you at this moment in time. That's for sure.
Sorry, Pete. I just wanted to give, and because we've started doing that for our guests. I thought it'd be fair. So that's Pete's Twitter handle. So it's as Pete mentioned, it's at @SportsPeteO. And then obviously Pete works for Footy Inside the 247. So if you don't follow those two Twitter accounts, give them a follow. Jack Talbot's on there as well, isn't he? Another recent guest.
Yeah.
Is it Jack? Is it Jack?
No, Jack's at transfers.com.
Transfers.com. Sorry, I'm getting confused.
Yeah. But the link to Pete, as you put on there, Chris, they are in the YouTube description chat. You've got it open as well in front of you.
Oh, brilliant.
Find that as well. Obviously, we always do that for our guests so people can find where their handles are and where they work. So, Pete, I don't know what you want to go to. There's a couple of little things that we'd already preloaded up that aren't transfer related, but are NUFC related, which we could briefly touch on before we get a few more questions. I don't know if that's somewhere you want to go or not.
Yeah, I'll bang it up and we can discuss it. So there we go. Just announced this evening, I believe.
Yeah.
Live streaming Newcastle friendly to be shown on National League TV. I've got to be honest, I was late out of work and pick up my daughter, so hadn't seen this in particular. Is it easy access? Do we have to pay for it? Boys, tell me.
Yes.
What's the deal?
It's going to be on National League TV website, so obviously it's not just a dodgy stream anywhere you get on your Fire Stick or whatever device that you may use. And it is $9.99 to stream the game. Now, obviously, a lot of people have been humming and hawing about this, obviously, because Newcastle's squad's going to be pretty thin, because obviously there's still a lot of it of the established squad away, because they've been on international duty, so they've had extended holiday and stuff like that. And people have been saying, do I really want to pay £10 to see, Matt Ritchie score a brace or something against the Heat? Others are saying, are you having an absolute laugh? Do you know what? What you've got to bear in mind that $9.99 will be distributed down to Gateshead. Obviously, they've only got so much tickets they can actually sell live for the game due to whatever the capacity might be. So look, it does support a local grassroots team. That if you do decide to stream it, just bear that in mind.
Definitely. And some other little snippets that are coming out as well. Our very own Mr. Jordan Cronin, who should be joining us next week. He'll be back in the hot seat on the panel. Newcastle World Zone put out today seats in the Leazes End are supposedly being uplifted and painted to spell out NUFC. So making changes in the stadium. To be fair, lots of teams do it.
It's interesting, Pete, because it's being given. There's a couple of little things on this because there's actually a picture that's been taken from one of the tours today that Jordan does credit them. You can see on the left hand side of that pitch there. It's obviously a picture. It's a little obviously square in the middle of the Leazes End there. However, there is a new corporate department that's also going. These are called the Rooftops. Obviously, I know we discussed this in our chat about a month or so ago. It could be for that, but apparently it could be something that the NUFC is going to be done as well around this section as well. So definitely one to watch on that one. Obviously, the NUFC bit. Obviously, Peter, our friend of the channel as well. Obviously, we met him when we were at the charity game. It was good to see him there. It could be that the NUFC's done around the corporate seating for all we know, but it's nice to see, the club doing little things like this, that when you actually go to the ground, you can see the NUFC doesn't just like play in black, play in grey, or washed out seats or whatever. It'll have a nice appearance in the ground as well. So,
representing, which is what we do. Like I say, other clubs do something very, very similar. Why not us? And do the same. It'd be great, actually. Potentially on one of the stands to have our sponsor. Seller on there as a main feature for when fans are not in the stadium. A lot of other clubs do that as well. Interesting one. Oh, okay.
Colin.
Okay.
Super chat received. Super chat received.
Two.
Yeah, we give him a double whammy. Thank you very much, Colin. A regular donator, I have to say, to the channel. Colin, it's not the first time, so massive thanks for your £10 donation. Put a question in there. Ask us something. We're around for a little bit longer. Ask us a question. That's for sure. But thank you very, very much. Right, we are coming towards the end, and there was one other topic that we were going to talk about. Or was there? Maybe not.
No, I think that's it. There might be a couple of little questions that you want to know. See, I know we've literally got a very, very short amount of time, and knowing we're being generous tonight, two of us have got places to be, unfortunately. So we're winding down the show, and we're going to be here in another half an hour or 40 minutes or whatever down the line. So
No, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Normally it's me.
Well, in that case, we'll go to sponsors then. But no, seriously, massive thanks to everyone in the chat. Always great questions tonight, as always. And look, Pete massively appreciates the love that was felt from you guys. We are so lucky. We have such a great community. Can
I just say, you might kill me for this, Rich? Have we got any questions there that we can just go bam? I feel terrible because we've got 17 in the chat there, haven't we? Any that we can just go boom? Might not have.
I don't know. There's this one from Will. Will's just turned around about. Obviously, there was ructions from certain parts of the Premier League team when Alan Sam Maxwell was getting linked to Saudi Arabia. Obviously, can Saudi teams not buy out deadwood up here? It's not. It's a difficult one. I know that Chelsea have had a lot of deadwood, but some of their deadwood are still being quality. Players. As you said, their levels are a lot bigger than some of the championship levels that we've got there. It is possible, and obviously that narrative of PIF buying ASM is started a few ructions with some fan base, but it goes back to a couple of weeks ago when it first started, and then obviously we had Ben Jacobs on, and everyone was asking about what about Chelsea, Clear Lake, the links to PIF owning them and stuff like that. It's got to fit a narrative. At the end of the day, as long as they don't come along and ASM they say, all right, we're going to pay 100 million for ASM, I don't think anybody could really grumble. If they come in and pay 40 million, I think it's probably more than acceptable. And I think I'll go for
one more here. I'm going to ask you this one.
All right.
Ronald Wood said, "Do you think the £25.5 million bid for Mitrovic from the Saudis is a low ball? Could we get Mitro to come back to bolster our war strike force or not?" Interesting. Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise to see that they were after him, and equally that he wants to leave Fulham in this window. But what do you boys think about Mitro? Is 25 too little? And would you take him at Newcastle as you would have to say a third choice, I imagine?
Chris, I'll let you do this one, mate.
Yeah, do you know what? I think it is a bit of a low ball because, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know it was a starting fee rising to 27, but I'm pretty sure we sold him for 27 million. So for him to have performed for Fulham how he has and to sell him for 25.5 million, let's be honest, Mitrovic has been a massive player for Fulham. So for are Fulham going to be able to replace him for 25.5 million? I think they'd struggle. I really do think they'd struggle. And to answer the question, could we get Mitro to come back and bolster our strike force? I don't know. I mean, Mitrovic, is he an Eddie Howe type player, Pete? I'll bounce it back to you. Is he an Eddie Howe type player? Could you see him coming as third choice, given the fact we know he's a Newcastle fan? He keeps talking about Newcastle. Would you? I'm not throwing loads of questions at you there, but what do you think?
Answer simply no.
No.
I don't think he's an Eddie Howe player, and I don't think he suits the style of football that we play. He's a terrific striker for what he does, but that's it. That's about it. To be fair, I have to say, last season he improved in his mobility, he improved in his work rate, but you have to be super fit and be ready to run yourself into the ground if you're playing in an Eddie Howe team, and I just don't see it from Mitrovic. Equally, for me, he would be third choice ahead behind Isak and Wilson, and I don't think he'd want to be. Why would he? He's 28, 29 years old. He'd want to be first choice striker for whatever team he plays for.
I could be way off here, but Jay Devlin saying 25 too much for Mitro, low ball. He's saying 10 million at most.
Oh no, come on! What did you get? He got double figures goals last season.
Yeah,
even though he missed, he had a 9 game ban. Nah, he's a. I would say Fulham get the money back around. He's 28, I think, years
25
old.
to 30.
I would say 30. If you go in Saudi, 35. I think is a fair price. You get more than money back than what Fulham paid us for Mitro, and I think both teams are happy. Also depends on how long he's got in his contract. I don't know.
Yeah, true.
But that could be part of that discussion. Unless there's any other questions, boys, we'll do sponsors and wrap up.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot tonight anyway. There's a few we could go through, but obviously time's actually restricting us tonight, unfortunately. So,
well, what you need to do is everyone click the like on the way out as we do the sponsors. Make sure you sub. We had over 15 subs last night, which is fantastic. Let's get another 15 plus tonight. Thank you for watching and thank you for supporting us in what we do. Right, sponsors. So. Massive thanks to Russ in the. Oh, hold on! No! Breaking.
Sorry, that was me.
Last minute.
That was me. Sorry.
You're gonna get people excited now, thinking there's something happening. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Hey lads, can you hear
going
me?
Anyway, yeah. How you doing?
Hey, you can hear me. Great. Not too bad. I'm out and about, lads. On a bit of an
T-shirts on.
Yeah, representing. I may be out of office, but I'm always representing, lads.
Yeah,
love it.
Look at that sunshine glow, mate.
Oh, stop! Yeah, heat is unreal. 32 degrees every day. A bit colder today, probably around 30 or 31. But yeah, I hear it's raining back home, so can't complain too much.
Thunderstorms the lot, mate.
Jesus.
Enjoy while you can.
Fucking hell, yeah. No, the little fella, my wife has gone to sleep, so I said, right, now's my chance. I'm going out on these roller coasters. The queues are mad all day, so I'm out in Portaventura just to the uncharted ride. But where are all these signings, lads?
Your guess is as good as ours. And I'm sure you'll be back next week to discuss it all, Daz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I'd miss all that, but Here, you get some of the action here. What's happening here?
It does seem as though Daz has rang up the club, has spoken to Dan Ashworth and everyone. Look, can you confirm he feels when they speak so?
Wave, lads. Yeah, it's all lining up for something massive actually next week. So hopefully I won't miss it all. Actually, no, I hope something happens tomorrow because look, everyone is dying for something to happen, and we said it about 2 weeks ago. The panic just before Tunali was signed, and it's growing now. You can see it, but no, it'll all come together. Look, they have a plan. I just think they're just weighing up the options, what way they actually go. What way actually I go here as well. Never mind me as I go into the dark. The park says open 11. But no, I'm looking for my next roller coaster. That's what I'm doing. But how's it all anyway?
All good.
Good, mate.
We're just rounding off. It's been a great show with Peter O'Rourke tonight, and for some fantastic topics and questions from the viewers as normal. So you've just missed another great show, Daz. You'll just have to catch up like everybody else.
Exactly, Richie. I will. Of course, I've changed back again as I run into people. Yeah, sorry about that. I will have to catch up. As I was saying to you, I was listening to the show you did last Thursday night on the beach there on Sunday. And I listened to it again. I was back on the beach today, so listened to about another 20 minutes of the Q&A show. I was really getting into that, so I must finish that off as well. But
yeah, you got this one to catch up on.
Yeah, this one as well. Now, jeez, I'm spoiled for choice.
Great stuff.
Do you know what?
Carry on.
You know what we should do since we're rounding up? I think we should get Daz to do the sponsors, Pete.
Oh, yeah. Where's my notes?
I'm not. Whoa! Here we go.
There we go. Shout out to HTO Bathroom Design Co., the Northeast largest supplier of Velcro and bathroom wear. People are looking at me here in Portaventura. So if you want to get your bathroom sorted, call down to the lads on Team Valley Estate, Gateshead, something like that. Yeah. And now shout out to Russ. Russ is actually on to me. He's some new pictures. I told him I'd stick them up next week when I'm back. But yeah, shout out to Russ. And as I'm heading towards China here in Portaventura, over towards Dragon Can and Shambhala. But yes, Russ for his radiators. You cannot beat them. And a shout out actually to Brett as well, who was chatting to today. Brett, I'm sure you'll ask him a shout out as well. But Brett said he loves the radiator bit. But this one's for you, Brett. Yeah, if you need radiators, get on to Russ. He will sort you out. He'll give you that loaded discount. As I'm walking around with a t-shirt saying loaded mag around here, people are going, what is wrong with this guy? But anyway, that's it from the sponsors.
And just before we sign off, we have to say massive thanks to Newcastle World, Jordan and Co, who will be joining us next week when you're back down. Scan and sign up for our free NUFC newsletter. So get your free newsletter from Newcastle World and listen to all and hear all the latest from Liam, Jordan and the boys. That's for sure. Look, we're about there, Daz. And
lads, you have to make a decision for me. I don't know, can you see these roller coasters in the background? Here, if I do it this way. Can you see them now? Can you see them?
I can see them.
Yeah. You have to pick which one I'm going to go on. The big one or the really big one?
The really big one.
The really big one. Shambhala. Yes, thanks for that, lads. Yeah.
Don't fall off. Don't fall off.
Well, if I fall off, Chris, you're in charge. Right?
That's bad news, mate. That is bad news.
Good, cool.
Daz, can I set you a challenge? You might not like this, and I might be putting a lot of pressure on you here.
Do it without safety net, is it?
You know how we finish the show. You know how we finish the show.
Oh, yes, I do.
Do you reckon you could get someone to say it? Do you reckon?
Okay. Yeah, I could. I saw someone with a Mayo jersey on there. I could have got them, but that would have been a bit too close to home. I need someone foreign. Okay, I'm gonna frighten someone. Not a little kid. Not a guy with holding a boogie. He might kill me, I'd say, as I head towards Dragon Can. Sorry, could you say, how do you like that? No, you can't. Okay, thank you. No, that was it. We're on to the next one. This is going to go down in history. I think she was French.
No, I can't.
Okay.
Could you say the army?
Yes.
Could you say, how do you like that?
What?
How do you like that? Go on.
How do you like cats?
Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. End of the show. Thank you very much. Have a good night. We did it! Yeah! Thank you.
You win something?
Yes, you win a prize. One of these t-shirts, a Loaded Mag t-shirt. Contact Chris Hall. Chris Hall, he will sort you out.
Yes. Yeah. Love it.
Oh God.
Love it.
Maybe I should do this. Could be my job on Loaded. Just be the roving reporter.
It's Alec Rice, isn't it? Challenge that.
It is. I'm looking for Fernand Torres next. Fernand Torres, where is he? Here in Barcelona. Get to Newcastle.
Love it. I think these boys have got to shoot somewhere. So there's only one way to really end the show, and we're going to let you do it. So,
okay. You don't want someone else? Shit, look at that.
That's a bad roller coaster.
Rather than me, mate.
Yeah. I'll probably lose the phone. Okay. Good night, everyone. Good night, lads. How do you like that?
How do you like that?
See you later.
Take care, boys.
How you like how you like